Yeah, so I got a question. I guess let's
Yeah.
get to. Um, so, how is it that you are able to publicly empathize with school, but unable to
Yeah.
empathize with Destiny expressing his train of thought in regards to his DDoSer situation?
There's a lot loaded in there that okay, so
Was that a quest statement?
hold
Oh
on.
no.
Destiny is a streamer that I'm having a lot of conflict with, for the few of you who may not know this.
Skipped to 2549 where they
And
discuss her
Destiny,
psychology.
when he was 22, he was getting, or 23, he was getting DDoSed by a high school kid. And talking about this incident a couple years after, maybe a year after.
You doxed someone? I don't know if I ever publicly doxed that kid or not. I'm not sure.
Destiny said, "Oh, I this is what you just described as him, would you say, saying his thoughts?
Yeah, like his train of thought, right? Like
His train of thought.
the
Okay, this is
things
what
he was thinking.
here's what Destiny actually said. That's a guy, that's one of the people, legitimately, like, I was so, you have no, it's actually kind of scary how close I was to getting people together to go down to his house and his family. Or it would have been just him and his father, because I didn't know anything about. Dude, that was some of the most fucked up shit in my entire life. I was so fucking close to doing it. But I was making so much money on
Based.
Twitch, and I don't know if my son, yeah, I don't know if my son was involved, meaning in the decision, but for whatever reason, I decided that the current life I had wasn't worth the risk of, oh my God, I was so close.
Based. Based and pill.
Damn,
Okay.
you got that quote up pretty fast. That's good, man.
Yeah, well, I got my Google Docs here, and my Destiny note is here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so that's not really just thoughts. That's like a plan.
Were you really considering it? Yeah, yeah, of course. There was this was way back when there was you had no DDoS protection. Me and Rachel still hadn't figured our living situation out. So I was trying to pay for my house, plus I think apartments I lived in, and I just had a newborn son. And there was a kid that was just pushing a button to shut my internet connection off for months. And I couldn't work, and it took me like 2 months to even figure out that I was getting DDoS. I thought I just had internet problems the entire time, and no matter where I traveled, no matter where I went, this kid would just shut my stream off over and over and over again. And eventually I found out who. First I contacted the FBI 3 different times. On every single interview they didn't care. As soon as they found out I was a video gamer, they didn't care at all. So the FBI didn't care, local law enforcement didn't care. I was able to contact, I figured out all of his family members. I called, I think, a brother and a sister, and I called the daddy, his father, and I started exchanging emails back and forth with him. And basically the dad told me that if I ever contacted his son again, he would threaten me with lawyers. He started making fun of me. He said that his son would never do these things. He just completely, yeah. So I was like, my whole fucking, how did you find out his info? A long story of complicated friends that worked in places and just a lot of shit. But yeah, he basically told me to kick rocks, and the dad like started threatening that he was gonna sue me and shit. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, I was basically almost done. Like my work was almost shut down completely. But but I figured out a revolutionary way to block people from getting your IP address from Skype and other means, and so we were okay. Did you ever find out why he was doing it? He was just bored, just a bored fucking kid, and his parents wouldn't do anything about it. So how'd you block him? It was just a kind of a clever trick to tunnel a bunch of traffic, a bunch of specified traffic on your computer through a VPS. The difficult part was that Skype was industry standard and everybody was using Skype, and Skype was notorious for not only exposing your public ID to everybody, it would store it in a database somewhere, because somehow you could scrape a database and find out people's IPs that weren't even currently logged into Skype. It would be like the last seen IP address. It was insane. But there was a very clever way that I figured out on how to mask an IP that ended up going really far. I made a lot of contacts because of that little security blip. The blog post still exists? Yeah, probably. It's probably out there somewhere, but at the time, what was difficult that the kid did? Like, was the kid exceptionally intelligent? No. All you did was you went onto a website, you typed somebody's name in. That might even still be up, actually. If you Google like Skype Resolver, you can type a person's Skype name in, IP address will be pulled. Then you go onto some site where you can rent people's like booters or whatever. You pay like $100 a month or some shit, and then you can basically for a minute you'll get access to their botnet, and you can shut down somebody's connection for, I think, a minute at a time, basically. But
that Destiny.
I remember you talked to that kid on stream. Yeah, I did. I think. Yeah. How'd you figure this shit out? What was it? I'm proud. This is the only tech thing I've ever done in my entire life that I'm somewhat proud of. The problem was that the issue is that, so a lot of people in chat are saying VPN, 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 but there were problems. The VPNs in my day are not like the VPNs now. You guys have access to VPNs that are just unfucking believable. Back then, one, if you run a VPN and you started getting DDoS, they might just kick you off. If they figure out that you're the reason, like some VPN is getting DDoS, they'll just boot you. They can't deal with that much traffic. And two, the speeds and reliabilities of VPNs like 10 years ago kind of fucking sucked. Today, you've got like Surfshark and NordVPN and shit, where you buy a VPN and you've got like 500 down, 500 up, and you don't even pay for the bandwidth. But like back then, it's like one down, one up. Like VPNs were, the data was the bandwidth was expensive. You'd have to pay sometimes per gigabyte. If you were getting DDoS, they can't mitigate that traffic. You just get fucked. They'll kick you off. It was just VPNs sucked. They lagged. Latency was horrible. The jitter was bad. It was just dog shit. It was just horrible. Back like 10 years ago, VPNs sucked. You're not gaming on a fucking VPN, and you sure as fuck aren't streaming on a VPN. Whereas today, fucking half the VPNs available for $6 a month are like better than most people's internet connections. It's insane. What is this diagram? Oh, cute. So the issue was I needed to find a way to mask the traffic of some programs on my computer while not masking the other traffic. That was the difficulty. So for Skype, it should have been easy, because Skype had a part in it that allowed you to enter in a SOCKS 5 proxy. You could enter a proxy for Skype to connect to. And then as long as you connect to that proxy, then they should only just get that proxy, so they shouldn't be able to DDoS you. It should be okay. But the problem was, with the implementation of Skype at the time, what Skype did was, when you had that proxy that you put in there, it just added that to the list of servers that it tried to connect to. So there's no guarantee that it would ever actually use the proxy to connect to anything. So even if you bought a VPS, even if you tried to proxy, if you put a proxy there, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't actually go to it. So you were like fucked doing that. The solution that I ended up finally going with was, there's a terminal program. Does terminal program make sense? I don't even know if I should say that. There's a program that allowed you to connect to servers using a command line called PuTTY. What I figured out was, you could get Skype to connect. Here's what you would do. So we open PuTTY, and what we do with PuTTY is we say, hey, PuTTY, we're gonna host a connection, basically a tunnel to a VPS that we buy on Amazon. So PuTTY is now running on your computer, and it's a little mini line that's going through a very small, I think that, what were they called? Not M2, not O2. There's a name for these very small micro instances that you could get on Amazon. So the PuTTY would go to that little thing, right? And then what you would do is you would go to Skype, and you would tell Skype, hey, I want you to only connect to localhost 127.0.0.1, I think, or 0.0.0.1 or something. 127.0.0.1, I think. You can only connect to localhost, okay? Then what you would do is you would go into Windows Firewall, and on Windows Firewall, what you can do is you can block Skype from making any connections to the internet. Now, even though Skype is blocked from making connections to the internet, that won't, so when it runs down its list of proxies to connect to sites, it will not be able to connect everything. It'll hit a dead end, and the only thing it'll be able to connect to is that 127.0.0.1, the local host. And when it connects to local host, what it's going to see there is the VPS that PuTTY is using to tunnel your traffic to that Amazon server. So that little implementation, that little workaround of shit was, I figured that out, and I was able to use that with my Skype to make it so that I didn't get DDoSed anymore, because the only IP that would ever be pulled was from that fucking VPS. I don't know how to communicate this to normal people, but like the equivalent would be like, imagine you wake up every morning and somebody's slashing your tire. Every single time you go outside, you slash your tire, you slash your tire, you slash your tire. And you can't go to work any morning because your tire's slashed. Like it doesn't sound like, I don't know how to make it relatable to a normal person. What is it like getting DDoS every day when your job is on the internet? But yeah. Did IPs not change after a certain period of time back then? You could always force a change in the IP. Way back then, you were able to, back then they did IP leasing differently from the ISP's DHCP, I believe. I think I'm using some of these terms right, to where it would only lease an IP address based on the MAC address to the first device behind whatever system they were using. So whatever the MAC ADDI on your cable modem or whatever bullshit was. No. It was the first MAC address behind the cable modem. So whatever your NIC was on your computer, your network interface card. There was a program that you could use called Titanium or Tritanium maybe? I don't remember. But it allowed you to spoof MAC addies on your NIC. And if you spoofed a different MAC address, they would lease you a different IP address. But the... Yep, still true. I don't know if that's true anymore, Cake. I feel like IP addresses are hardcore leased to your like residence or your address now. I don't think you can force an IP change, or at least not on any of the fiber connections I've had. I've never been able to force an IP address. If you change your MAC ADDI, you have to actually call your ISP, and you've got to get them to lease or re-register that new MAC address with your account. Technidium, I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I don't think you could. I don't think you can just like spoof a new MAC ADDI on a modem and then get a new IP address anymore. I don't think you can. I did it on Fios twice. Oh, I had never had any luck doing it the past like 4 or 5 years, but. If you change your Skype account, how would the kid get your IP? There were a million ways to figure out who's, what your Skype address was and all that shit. There was a lot of dumb shit back in the day. Lots of ISPs now do not let people change their IP address. I used to do this all the time, and my new ISP router doesn't let us do this. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't know, maybe some people can. I have no idea. Didn't you talk to him on stream? Yeah, I think there's a conversation somewhere on stream, but I can't listen to it. I'm way too obnoxious back then. I was a younger man. Destiny, DDoS, kid. Destiny, it's probably this kid. Damn, these were big videos back in the day. 11 years ago, 333,000 views, guys.
I didn't hear you.
I'm saying that you probably... But yeah, there are videos of me talking to the kid, but... So the kid was paying botnets to DDoS you? Yeah, the kid was like 16 years old, of course.
Right. Yes or no? Destiny had...
My IP has only changed like 2 times in the last 5 years. Typically, IP addresses... IP addresses are leased to a hardware ID, a hardware address, the MAC address. But usually the leases last for 7 days. But the thing is once the lease expires, it'll auto-renew the same IP to the same MAC. So sometimes you could change an IP if you disconnect your device and the lease expires at the same time. But those leases can be long. I think those leases can be 7 days or longer. So you're doing that, unplugging your shit and plugging it back in, usually won't get you a new IP, I don't think.
Had a plan to this kid at some point.
No.
Destiny never had a plan to this kid.
No.
Okay, I just so because the strength, the cult's grip on your brain might not be clear to people. So I just want you to clarify to me this sentence. God, I can't even. For whatever reason, I decided the current life I had wasn't worth the risk. I was so close. I had his fucking address. I had streets mapped out.
It's so crazy that a guy that got between me and Max, only one of us has ever been arrested for violence, by the way. It's so crazy that he thinks he could be in school after his school. We all wanted to be classmates, but he has no empathy for me here. That's so insane.
You maintain that does not describe someone who at any point because my take is that he had a plan and then he called the plan.
It's really important to your article too that this fits, right? So
just for this conversation, I don't want to talk about the article.
Okay.
People are thinking like low orbit ion cannon. I don't think back then. Some area of expertise. There's different ways to DDoS people. One way is just brute force, like I'm sending you a fuck ton of packets, get fucked. But there are other attacks that you can make depending on where you're at in the stack, in the layer. When I talk about like layer 3, layer 4, in the network stack or whatever, there are different places that you can hit with different types of attacks. I think newer attacks are more sophisticated, and that like a smaller amount of data can cause a huge amount of disruption depending on where it's hitting, depending on the type of attack it is. But way back in the low orbit ion cannon days, I think back in those days, you were more likely to push the DDoS button, or it would be just a DOS really, and you would nuke your own connection trying to like kill somebody else's. Because back then you had no upstream. Like a typical internet connection might be 1 megabyte per second down and like 50 kilobits per second up or something like that, or maybe a little better, maybe a little worse. You're not nuking somebody's internet connection with your own solo low orbit ion cannon bullshit. You're not going to do anything. Did you actually have plans of killing the cat? I mean, I wanted to. If I didn't know what else I was going to do. I mean, I probably wouldn't have. I doubt I'm not much of a Walter White. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to do. It was like, do I just quit my job? Like, is my kid fucked? I have no like place to live? Like, is my fucking life over? Like 1 or 2 years in. L4, fill your target's internet pipes. L7, overwhelm your target's computer. Gotcha.
My view is that if you say I had streets mapped out, I got a permit to own a gun, I was so close to doing it, and then I decided it wasn't worth it, to me...
I wonder if this is going to be part of his article. This is how Destiny tries to kill people when he doesn't like them.
Well, if he did get the permit to own the gun as a result of this, but I still don't think it's a plan.
I'm asking you questions, and if you don't start answering them, I'm going to have to kick you.
Damn.
That's the question.
Do you think that Destiny got a permit to own a gun because of this situation, based on what I just said to you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I do too. Do you...
oh, actually, I guess because he's got all of my exact quotes. This is probably part of his research, huh?
What would I do if someone were making it so I couldn't stream?
Yeah.
I would sue them.
Sue them for what? I'm not even sure if DDoSing was illegal back then. I already contacted the FBI 3 times. It would have been a civil case. Who was the guy in chat that I talked to? Actually, I consulted a lawyer once for a lawsuit. It was like LOL Texas lawyer. Does anybody know? Where are my old chatters at? Where are my old chatter? RTBA might remember. This chatter is probably older than RTBA. Does anybody remember? Like Lawler Texas Law or LOL Texas lawyer or something? Does anybody remember who I'm talking about? A long time ago, I did a consultation, and that guy was telling me that I was probably looking at like 50K minimum for a type of civil suit like that. That I'm gonna have to pay like fucking. I got to pay like expert witnesses to come in and explain like TCP, IP, and DDoS and the technologies involved, just because it was like such a technological thing that it was just going to be incredibly costly to do a case like that. And there was no precedent for any cases like that. I don't think anybody ever sued for DDoSing. I would have been the first case of its kind ever. And back then, I wasn't making like the big bucks. I'd already wasted my first year's income on I don't know what, because I'd never had money before. Yeah, there was just no fucking way. You almost went to court. I was gonna do Judge Judy. I reached out to the producers, but then I found out that both sides got paid on Judge Judy, so I didn't want to do that shit either. And also, Judge Judy only gives you $5,000. Yeah, fuck that. But how old was the kid in relation to you? I think the kid was probably 16. I think I was 22.
But you can't, Max, because you can't make the kid liable for what he's doing. It's all VPN.
Wait, what do you can't? Destiny said the reason he didn't sue him because it would be too expensive. He said he estimated that it would cost about $20,000.
Yeah.
I think it was 50. Was it 20,000? I thought it was 50. Max has gone through all my shit more than I have. But
he said 20,000.
I think you said 50. But
okay. Yeah, well, that's what I would do. Is I would sue them.
Suing them is not a solution. It doesn't get them to stop. The entire process could take a long time. You don't even know where you're like. That's just such a stupid. Damn. It's so annoying how narcissistic. I don't care how narcissistic Max is. I just hate that he presents himself as an empath. That's probably the biggest trigger of all time. Like, just don't pretend to be an empath, and then you're good. Then I can fuck with you. But like him pretending to be so empathetic, it's like, oh, I would just take them to civil court and sue them, a process that I don't know anything about, to a guy that doesn't have really the money to do it. Like,
if I couldn't afford a lawyer, I would just take him to small claims court.
What is the cap on small claims $5,000? Also, what state would I sue him in? Also, how does small claims court? I would have to prove loss. I don't even know if can you sue in small claims court for lost wages? Where's Pisco at? Without a, I don't even have a police report. What am I doing in? What is this even?
You have a recording of him saying that he's purposely making it so you can't stream. So I would.
But he said you would have to, like, didn't Destiny say you'd have to get them to explain to the judge like all this technical shit, right? And it would be hard for the judge to even buy it, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a hard lawsuit to pull off, but that's what I would do. Or if I were smart like Destiny about IT shit, I would do what he actually ended up doing, which is figure out a way to prevent DDoSing.
But that's what I did do. So he's just mad about my statements. It's the ultimate virtue signal.
Then Destiny wrote an anti-DDoSing guide that was used for years by other streamers. And it was so effective that in the guide he said, you know, people in professional or like competitive StarCraft matches, because of this guide, no longer have any excuse for getting DDoS and dropping out of a match. It should count as a loss because I have so effectively designed a solution. So if somebody who has...
That was true. My shit got posted at HLTV. It got posted on a Steam Dota website. I got my connections to like every major, like I think TSM and CLG. Yeah, that was a good ass guy.
The technical know-how to actually figure out a way to prevent DDoSing doesn't really have an excuse for planning to murder a fucking child.
I just talked. Look at the virtues and all. I just talked to Pisco and he confirmed that your lawsuit would indeed be classified as art. Thank you.
So if somebody who has the technical know-how to actually figure out a way to prevent DDoSing doesn't really have an excuse for planning to murder a fucking child. Not that anybody has an excuse to plan to murder a fucking child, but least of all,
gained the technical know-how over a long, drawn-out period of.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. I would.
That was painful for him to do. It wasn't.
Oh God! Well, if he has to go through something painful like learning how to fucking stop somebody from DDoSing him, he shouldn't have to go through that. He should murder children instead. You're out of your fucking minds. You are all out.
I can't believe the virtue signal. It's so funny because he'll be on another thing like, what did he say before that? Is it really 13-year-old to get from that 50-year-old that on Twitter? Wasn't he just arguing that like 2 weeks ago when he was getting shipped to his community for like the 57th craziest thing? Wasn't he trying to defend that guy? It was like, is it really that bad if like was it a 15-year-old getting from a 47-year-old? And he's like, is that bad? And I was like, you want to fucking murder a fucking kid? Like, oh my God, chill.
Of your fucking minds.
But you're not out of your minds. You empathize with Max.
Do you know what empathy
you can
is?
understand. You can understand where he's coming from.
Do you know what empathy is? Oh, I empathize with Stephen. I empathize with Destiny. I understand. Okay. I understand that if you have no morals and you're a sociopathic, crazy person, that child seems like a good idea for you when you're really angry.
No, are you not going to at least consider that that's a thought that would pass through your head if you're being mentally tormented by someone?
Absolutely.
Do you not consider killing your tormented?
I'm not mentally. Please don't say I was mentally tormented. I wasn't mentally tormented. My fucking career was getting destroyed. I was losing money every single day. I had a fucking newborn kid to support. He was fucking Nathan was like 1.5 years old. I couldn't live with Rachel because every time I tried, it was still physically abusive. So I was bumping around these weird fucking apartments in Omaha with these weird fucking people I was living with. Or Rachel and my kid were trying to live in my house. Like, what is this idea that like, oh, it was mental torment? It wasn't. If it was just mental torment, I wouldn't have given a fuck. I deal with all sorts of mental torment. Just look at my subreddit.
Yes.
Wait, consider.
Yes.
I noticed we just took a little jump from a thought that would pass through your head to consider. I would never consider killing someone.
Are you not describing mental torment? Mental torment sounds like trolling on the internet. He wasn't trolling me. He was shutting down my fucking paycheck. I couldn't fucking work.
Someone who was DDoSing me now.
What do you mean? What was the jump? Like, where were you?
You said a thought that would pass through your head.
Yes, this is a thought. I'm going to kill this guy.
Okay, a thought is different from consideration. Do you agree with that? Like if I said when I'm really angry at Shaylin, sometimes I think about knocking our 65-inch TV over and jumping on it. That wouldn't be that weird to say. But if I say sometimes I consider knocking our 65-inch TV over and jumping on it, that would be a step further. I think.
That'd be a little step further.
Okay, so instead of you swapping one out for the other and trying to take me down the slippery slope to fucking psycho land, let's be clear about what we're saying. Yes, I can empathize with crazy people. I can empathize with people doing things that I would never do, or planning to do things, or considering to do things that I would never consider doing. Empathy is when you are different from someone and you can understand their feelings. You are using empathy to mean that you're the same as the person and you're admitting that you're the same.
Next week, we're banned on YouTube.
Yes,
once
but
again.
I can empathize with it. Yeah,
I'll
I can
catch you guys over there.
a lot of the way Destiny
anyway,
operates is like ignoring your
what else? Oh, Chris, you got an announcement, right?